we are going to go straight into our next session, which is sustainable public transport. What does socially justice public transport look like? And with us, we have a very amazing list of panelists that are going to take us through that. Remember to keep your questions, to write them on our chat box, and the panelists that are going to be with us live will help you answer these questions. Thank you very much. Up next is sustainable public transport. What does socially just public transport look like?
Hello, everyone. In this presentation, we will be talking about the project Mobility for Her, which is aimed to understanding urban mobility from an intersectional lens. The project is an extension for our previously done work with FES, and we are happy to present again this year with the Women in Transportation in Africa conference. We are the presenters. I'm Diala, and we have Ahmed and Rania. Our biographies are included in the presentation, so if you would like to read more about us, please help yourself. About the Mobility for Her project, several studies identify that female users have a different experience in the everyday trip, whether to social reasons, whether to cultural reasons, or to policy-related reasons. And this also applies to other minorities of users, such as elderly, children, and people with disability. And this is where the Mobility for Her project comes to look at the experience of the users within the urban mobility. The structure of the study was divided into three main parts. The first part, we looked at the methodology and the methods that can be used to understand the area and the tools. And then we looked at the current conditions of mobility trends in the city of Amman, such as the construction of the bus rapid transit. And afterwards, using the data sets that are available, we laid the foundation to analyze current mobility trends through five different intersectional mediums, which are poverty, politics, urban development, urban complexity, and adaptation. In order to spread the awareness about the project and to align it with global and international efforts, we aligned the launch of the publication and the campaign with the International Women's Day 2020 before the COVID-19 situation. And using the theme, the color purple, and the logo, we conducted a workshop, and this is some of the posters that we had as a result of this workshop. Ahmed?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Diala. I will be talking briefly about Amman urban mobility and what is the current situation for Amman urban mobility. We have two systems running. We have the BRT system that will be operational in 2021. Next, please, Diala. And we have the Amman bus. This is the map for Amman bus, and it serves 11 districts out of 22 districts. Both of these systems, they have a lot of security and safety, and they provide a lot of, let's say, good connections everywhere in the serviced areas. And hopefully, in the near future, they will be developed even further to cover the whole city. So as researchers, we built on that. We took them as two prime examples. Even though the mobility trends in the city is really bad and the infrastructure of our transportation system is lacking accessibility and safety. And as I said before, public transportation is part of mobility in Amman. It does have a lot of issues. We took a highlight on the, let's say, vulnerable groups in particular, because our research is focusing on that to make it more inclusive and intersectional. So we took these good two systems and then we built on them by selecting the sites of the city that we want to work from an intersectional lens, like my colleague said. In order to select the sites, we had to do a reachability map. And in this reachability map, we identified the 5 sites. This reachability map was developed through a tool called Urban Network Analysis. And in this urban network analysis, we have identified the 5 sites that matches the themes that we want to tackle and from an intersectional lens. And these 5 sites were also cross-referenced with the density, population density in the city. These are from the census from Greater Amman municipality. Next, please. We also overlaid the sites on these density maps to understand what are the characteristics beside reachability. And also we studied the network that is existing at the moment, regardless of Amman bus and BRT. And from there, we laid out the reachability map with network, with our selection of sites, and we understand how each and every site, you can see in colors, the red ones are highly reachable, the blue ones are very low reachability. So the selection was modified accordingly and matched with the themes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. Moving on to the themes were connected directly to the site. So each of the site had one theme addressing it. So the first theme was connecting mobility through politics. It shed light on the political landscape of the city of Amman and identified the roles mobility plays in improving political participation. The second theme talked about urban mobility and poverty. It highlighted the spatial injustice resulting from poor connectivity and accessibility and addressed concepts such as time poverty and the lack of economic involvement for female users. The third theme, entitled A Tactical Approach to Upgrading Urban Mobility, introduced some concepts of tactical urbanism and small-scale solutions that have a large-scale impact, especially in highly populated and densely populated and compacted areas. The fourth theme was called Urban Mobility for Improved Livability and Livelihood, which shed light on the connections between urban indicators and mobility and showcased how improved mobility aids in the achievement of more livable cities through more sustainable livelihood strategies and a better quality of life. The fifth and last theme was the future of mobility, and it laid the foundation to identify potential future research and the ways this project can contribute to the wider discussion on mobility from an intersectional lens. Thank you, and I'll be moving to Rania.
Thank you. Yeah, so why do we actually need to integrate this intersectional understanding into mobility planning? So we really thought about the synergy between urban evidence and gender-based urban research. So where we think about why do women access mobility in a different way? What the consequences does this have? So when we think about not just physical mobility, but also social and economic mobility, having rights within the city, having access to public property in a way and public space, and not just from like a perspective of a woman, but also from somebody that has a disability, that is young, that is elderly, that maybe has a migrational or refugee background. So we came up with conclusions and recommendations, which are based on the Amman Green City Action Plan, which is planning for Amman to be carbon emission free or zero in 2050. There is a section on transportation, and there's quite a few recommendations, and we thought to look at these recommendations and proof them. So we selected 3 recommendations, which you can see here as well. The first 3 recommendations we actually adapted and improved. So the first one was simply plan and construct a bus rapid transit system. And we improved it by saying plan and conduct an inclusive and accessible bus rapid transit system, including connected infrastructure, plans to support accessibility of stations, secure first and last mile connectivity, as well as affordability plans. And then we added the last 4 as well. So thinking about database, walkability maps, but really also about a gender action plan for sustainable urban mobility. We want to thank you and just want to say that this was just a very brief overview of the project. We will send you the presentation, and also in 2 to 3 weeks, the study will be ready and designed, and you can have access to that then and really look into depth into the topics.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Constant Kapp, Senior Product Manager at Code for Africa Census Program. I'm an urban planner by profession, and also a regular commentator on urban planning matters and concerns. I'm also a director at Napolitans, urban planning think and do tank within the city of Nairobi. And we're here to discuss socially just public transport, and what exactly do we mean by socially just public transport, and how can we put the whole concept into practice within the field. So I'm going to introduce Geoffrey, who is with me here, will introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Geoffrey Muhirwe, and I'm a research fellow at Makerere University. In short, I'm a PhD candidate, and I have been a managing director at Dora Travel Services till October this year. When I started my PhD, I stopped that. And right now, I stay in Kampala, Uganda. I was informed about the need for presentation of my document, which is about governing the ungovernable, the border transport in Kampala, Uganda. I was recently given this topic to handle about the socially just public transport, and I happen to have done a research on border transport in Kampala, and so I was given this privilege to share it with this platform, and here we go, governing the ungovernable border transport in Kampala. That was the title of the research, of the study, and there is my current position. I was at one time a sales executive at Millennium Travel and Tour Services. Then I worked, actually I started a company called Dora Travel Services, where I've been working and running business till when I decided to go for further studies up to October, just last month. And currently I'm a PhD fellow at Macquarie University in partnership with Keswick University in Germany. I hold Masters in Public Administration and Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Tourism of Macquarie University. When we read through my abstract, motorcycle taxi, commonly known as boda in Uganda, has been looked at as a solution to the problem of easy mobility and employment in Uganda's urban centers in general and Kampala for our purpose. However, it should be noted that a lot of problems have come up from this very solution. Bodas have been on several occasions reported in newspapers and other media as being the convenient means of transport used by criminals as they accomplish their heinous missions. It is from such background that it is necessary to find out why it is that these unbecoming activities have continued to take place, though various research methods this study sought to fill the knowledge gap on the ways how the ungovernable border operators can be governed or regulated. This research profiled the border riders, investigated the role of city authorities in the management of border transport, examined and highlighted the legal regulatory framework that guides border taxi in Uganda. Interesting finds was recorded and came up with recommendations for what needs to be done to effectively regulate the border transport sector. The research was carried out within the Central Business District of Kampala. When we got the background, about 2 decades ago, Ugandans woke up to a new form of transport, that was border transport. In Kampala, the movement of people varies from walking, riding bicycles, motorcycles, driving vehicles. All these forms of movement in Kampala take place on the streets which were planned as far back as the early 1930s by engineer A.E. Mirama. This was recorded by Mugabe Faustin 2006. During this time, when Kampala streets were being planned, the population of Kampala was less than 1 million people. Over the years, the population has increased, but the infrastructure has been improving at a slower pace, if not remained relatively constant. Too much pressure is put on these narrow roads in the city, resulting into ugly traffic jams. Kampala has approximately 1,200 kilometers of road, of which only 20% are in fair condition. Kampala's road network was constructed for less than 100,000 vehicles in 1960s, and yes, today over 400,000 vehicles use the same road. Most of the roads have outlived their usefulness, needs total reconstruction and expansion. Uganda is experiencing high levels of rural-urban migration, making mobility in the city's urban center challenging. Urban land use planning in view of transport is majorly motoristic, creating the city for cars rather than the city for people. Yet a substantial proportion of Kampala people move on foot. I think I've rushed so far. Public transport facilities take care of only 10% of the city population, and the rest who walk and ride on motorcycles are not planned for. As the population increases with the challenge of youth and employment, people keep coming up with innovations on how to survive. Among other innovations is the motorcycle taxi transport, commonly known as boda boda. For the rider as a border cyclist. This mode of transport has become so popular in Uganda to the extent that all motorcycles are considered to be boda boda. The word boda boda came from the English word border to border, which originates from Busia, town in eastern Uganda. The youth who popularized the term used to ferry people from Kenya border to Ugandan border and vice versa. The youth would shout border border, meaning border to border. The word started with the use of bicycles as the means of transport between two international borders, Kenya and Uganda, and even before there was the bicycle transport in Kampala. This bicycle transport is still very common in Bwaise and Clock Tower, where the terrain tends to be flat in Kampala. These are the two places, the Bwaise and the city Clock Tower. These are two flat areas within the city of Kampala, and they have that kind of people who ride around bicycles, and so that one is still a common practice. When we look at the ownership of and operation of boda boda taxi in Kampala, the ownership and operation of boda boda taxi in Kampala is as diverse as it is fragmented. Boda boda taxi operate almost invariably under the informal sector, characterized by highly dispersed ownership, with most individual entrepreneurs owning no more than one or two motorcycles, which they generally rent out to riders. The mention of operation of boda boda, the method of operation of boda boda taxi public transport is basic. The rider has to pay weekly fees to the owner and is responsible for the motorcycle operation costs, both fuel and repair charges in the case of the breakdown of the motorcycle. The average rider is a youth, averagely between 18 and 35 years of age, mostly dominated by males. There are a few cases of female riders. Most owners are business people and professionals for whom involvement in public transport provides a way to supplement income without incurring much, if any, liability, and who often exploit their positions to protect their boda boda taxi business interests. Excuse me. Boda boda riders until recently were organized under the association Kampala Boda Boda Riders Association, which had a strong role in boda boda taxi business. The boda boda associations, according to the analysis, are most times loose coalitions smirking with political activisms. Boda Boda taxi public transport in Kampala is operated informally in a policy and regulatory vacuum. The organization, management, growth and development of Boda Boda taxi in Kampala depicts a lack of proper governance and a dire need for a solution. Increasing levels of urbanization and congestion in Kampala city has created considerable pressure on public transport and necessitated a systematic physical and infrastructural and institutional planning. In the recent years, Uganda and the rest of the developing countries have had the birth of new mode of transport, which came as a solution to the problem of congestion in urban centers and cities at large. This mode of transport is characterized by segmented operations, high motorcycle accidents, often operated by the rebellious youth and trained riders, and often have been cited in criminal acts like robberies, killing of high-profile Ugandans like that of AIGP Andrew Felix Kawees was aided by motorcycle. The Independent March 17, 2017, that is the reference you can make. The motorcycle transport is perceived to be a solution to problem, but it is not clear whether really it is a solution or a worse problem than the solution offered by the Boda Boda taxi. Much research work has been done on the nature and system of operations of public transport in Kampala. The research purpose to fill gap in knowledge on why, regardless of many good laws on paper, why Boda Boda operators have remained hard to be governed, hence governing the ungovernable. The question that has remained unanswered is why the Boda Boda business has become so hard to be governed, and in what ways can the ungovernable Boda Bodas be governed. This research aims to answer this question. To answer this question, this research considered various aspects of the problem, the implementation of the traffic laws and the regulations, dominant age groups in the Boda Boda business, the problem of unemployment and blocked alternatives, and last but not least, free entry and free exit in the Boda Boda business. There is no school where these operators are trained from. In this context, ungovernability means failure to implement the traffic laws that are already in place. Various assumptions have come up as to why it has become hard to implement the traffic laws that would otherwise bring order into the Boda Boda taxi as a mode of transport in the capital city of Uganda and other urban centers. The riders are in transitional age group. That's one of the theories, which is rebellious. It is also looked at as a reflection of a fundamental crisis of unemployment in the country. The authorities are leaving unemployed youth to crowd in the sector as a coping mechanism because government has failed to provide decent and rewarding alternative jobs. Some urge that motorcycle transport as a business is looked at as both formal and informal. Formal because the riders are registered under Kampala Capital City Authority, and informal because there is no particular academic qualification that is needed to register. It is a business that can be done by any person so long as he or she can ride the motorcycle. Last but not least, it is also assumed that motorcycle transport business is hard to govern because some of the cyclists are part of the patronage system used to gather intelligence information for the regime, and this makes it hard to govern motorcycle riders. The research was carried out within the Central Business District of Kampala. Nakasero here is bordered by Mulago to the north, Makerere to the west, Old Kampala to the west, Namilembe, Amengo, and southwest, Nsambia to the south, Chibuli to the southeast, and Kororo to the east. Again, the researcher purposefully sampled out Benchwanka Room and William Streets as the center of focus for this research. This was because these are the busiest streets of Kampala city, with many border stages. By the nature of their area of operation, the researcher was convinced that these border taxi operators have all the required information to inform the research. Additionally, 15 traffic police officers were interviewed, 3 from each of the following police stations: Central Police, Wandegeya, Old Kampala, Katwe, Jinja Road. Also to inform the research, 10 Kampala Capital City Authority traffic wardens from Queensway Roundabout, Shoprite Junction, Entebbe Road Junction, and among others along Kampala Road were interviewed as well. This research utilized both qualitative and quantitative approaches. Triangulation research techniques was done during data collection, analysis, interpretation, and discussion of the results. The design was selected because the target population was diverse. Acknowledge that the design is not the most robust, but given the time and the cost limitation, I was compelled to use it. However, the design enabled me to collect substantive data to inform the study. Triangulation is the process of verification that increases validity by incorporating several viewpoints and methods. In the social sciences, it refers to the combination of 2 or more theories, data sources, methods, and investigators in one study of a single phenomenon to converge in a single construct, and can be employed in both quantitative and qualitative studies. The study comprised of border riders who were purposefully sampled out simply because the researcher believed that all border riders had the necessary information deemed necessary to inform the research. Traffic police officers were also included in the study because it is their mandate under Police Act 2006, Article 22, subsection 1, to direct and regulate the course of traffic, and KCCA traffic wardens were also part of this study because they work hand in hand with traffic police to guide the flow of traffic on Kampala roads. Snowball sampling tool was also employed in the selection process of traffic police and KCCA traffic wardens to be interviewed. As a result, 15 traffic police officers from 5 police stations of the Central Police, Wandegeya, Old Kampala, Katwe, and Jinja Road police stations, and 10 traffic wardens from various junctions along Kampala and Entebbe Road within the Central Business District of Kampala were interviewed. Snowball sampling is where the researcher identifies a few subjects who later refers the researcher to other subjects whom they know have the required characteristics until the researcher gets the number of cases they require. Convenient accidental or accidental sampling data collection method was used in conjunction with structured questionnaires that led the researcher to get quantitative data from border operators, traffic police, and KCCA traffic wardens. The researcher camped at various border stages as he waited and interviewed the cyclists until the questionnaires were filled up. Then, with the help of the border cyclist, he rode to targeted police stations where traffic police officers were interviewed. The researcher then went to various junctions where KCCA wardens operate from along Kampala and Entebbe roads, and interviewed the wardens as well. Research findings. This chapter presents the research findings aimed at achieving the study objectives as enumerated below. To promote boda riders in the central business district by the age group, to investigate the role and the perceptions of the city authorities on management of boda transport, and to critically examine the existing legal framework that is guiding the regulating the boda taxi sector, to outline recommendations of what needs to be done that will bring sanity to boda transport in Kampala. This chapter looks at the boda profile, which includes age, sex, level of education, registration status with KCCA, and ownership of the motorcycles that they use. This chapter also looks at the reasons for common arrests of boda cyclists, the role played by politics, the management of boda transport in Kampala, the role of traffic police and KCCA in the management of boda transport in the city. This chart shows the age group of boda riders. According to this finding, it was discovered that 57.3% of the riders are in the age group between 31 and 60 years, and 42.7% are between the age groups of 19 to 30 years. The total of 397 of boda cyclists were sampled in Kampala City Central Business District, particularly along Benchwanaka Street, William and Bishop Room Streets. All of the riders randomly selected were males. Most of the riders, 80.2%, were married, and others, 19.8%, were single. The boda business is dominated by people with own independent families in Kampala and outside the city. More than half of the boda riders fall into the age group of 31 to 60 years, giving a percentage of 57.3, and remaining 42.7 are between 12 to 30 years. A further analysis of this age group showed that there are no adolescents, that is 12 to 19 years. All of them were above 19 years of age. Level of education for boda riders. The survey also looked at a level of education amongst the riders, and 93.3% of the riders had attended school. Of these, 48% studied O-level, 36.8% did primary, and 9.3% joined advanced level of secondary education. This means that most stopped schooling after senior 4, but also significant number never joined secondary. Okay. We go to on the issue of registration. This is in the registration. All the sampled boda riders had stages where they operate from, and of which 97.2 were registered officially with the stage. The local council letters and stage fees were required to register with the stage. However, 3/4, that is 75% of the riders registered their boda with Capital City Authority. This means that bodas registered at the stages were more than those that had registered with KCCA. Different riders perceived registration with KCCA differently as below. Most of the riders owned the motorcycles they were riding. According to the study, 70% of the boda riders who were interviewed are the sole owners of the motorcycles they are riding. Impact of city politics on boda riders. Some members of the Boda Boda business believe in the role of city politics and in streamlining their business operations. 51% of the Boda Boda riders believe the Lord Mayor helped to organize them politically for their good in the city of Kampala. However, 49% believe that the Lord Mayor has not done anything good concerning their business. According to the study, Boda Boda leaders argue that high level politics has helped them to survive in the city despite of KCC harassment, as it was termed. They argue that sometimes the president and ministers intervened in their issues, thus the technical wing of the city authority cannot implement unfair regulations. Traffic police response to the challenge of Boda transport. On the police officers interviewed, police officers interviewed, 64% have been in police for more than 5 and less than 10 years. 21% been in the police force for a period of less than 5 years, and 15 have been in traffic police for more than 10 and less than 15 years. 100% of the traffic police respondents have had cases involving Boda Bodas. 64% of the cases had failed to respect traffic laws. 21% had knocked down passengers, and 15% knocked down by speeding vehicles. The study findings show that 50% of the Boda Boda arrested were taken to court and charged. 42% paid express penalties, and 8% of the motorcycles were confiscated. According to the traffic police, the Boda Bodas had to manage because of various reasons. Political affiliation of the riders ranked high among others. 64% of the respondents point at political affiliation as the leading cause to be for the behavior of Boda Boda cyclists. 14% attribute the problem of managing the cyclists to age, and other 14% of the respondents put the problem of the level of education, whereby 8% blame it on Boda Boda ownership. Why ungoverning Boda Bodas in Kampala? Political affiliation, 64%. Age of the riders at 14%, level of education at 14%, and Boda Boda ownership at 8%. All the traffic police respondents acknowledge the existence of the legal framework aimed at bringing order to Boda Boda riders. Among the laws they quoted were all riders are supposed to have rider's permit, or observe traffic lights, wear crash helmets, not to carry more than one passenger, follow traffic road signs, wear reflective jackets, have third-party insurance. The research found out that these are very few known institutions, that train Boda Boda riders on how to ride motorcycles. An estimated 43% of the traffic police knew of the said institutions and named them as Safe Border, Uganda Driving Standards Agency, Uganda Police Driving School, Chibuli, and BTM Driving School in Wandegeya, Prestige Driving School. Surprisingly, 57% of the traffic police respondents did not know of any school that trained the Boda Boda cyclists. The study also revealed to the research that there is no good working relationship between police force and the Boda Boda operators. 57% of the respondents did not see any good working relationship between traffic police and the Boda Boda operators. To have the streamlined Boda Boda operations in Kampala and Uganda at large, the traffic police respondents came up with various recommendations as follows. Government should introduce riding schools to train riders and training for all riders should be made mandatory to start and thereafter whoever is to join should undergo compulsory training with training certificate given to them in addition to having the rider's permit. Implementation of laws should not be interrupted by government officials and politicians. Entry into border transport should be restricted. The government should gazette stages for border riders, register all border riders and their stages, enforce traffic laws without fear of favor. Generally and particularly, there should be strict enforcement of traffic laws regarding border industry. Community policing should be encouraged among the border operators. The government should put in place the body authority to guide the borders operations separate from the traffic police. The 2 number plates in front and behind of the motorcycle that has been introduced recently should be rolled out to all the motorcycles, not new ones only. In the past, the new ones were only given the number plates in front and behind, but now at least it has rolled out. The government, through traffic police, should introduce periodic registration and regular inspection of motorcycles to ensure good condition of motorcycles on the road and check the motorcyclist's behavior. The study also found out that regardless of the continued bad behavior of the border riders, the traffic police has impounded border motorcycles and penalized riders with express penalties invoices which they pay before releasing motorcycles. They have in the past arrested and prosecuted the errant riders. Heavy fines have been imposed on offenders to deter the rest of these bad acts. Sensitization should through community policing has been done. Impromptu traffic operations are in place in which many of the offenders are arrested. According to the study, the matter of border having been reported in the media, having participated in the recent wave of gun attacks and assassinations on high government and religious officials, the traffic police first of all raised a concern that not all motorcycles are being used in the border transport. However, the traffic police in partnership with the security agencies have ensured registration of borders and enforcement of acquisition of national IDs. Enforced the regulation of 2 number plates to ensure easy identification of the motorcycles through community policing. The traffic police has encouraged vigilance and neighborhood watch. By the time this study was done, the traffic police, in partnership with KCCA and other security agencies, the issue of involvement of border in the wave of assassination of high-profile citizens was still under investigation. The public was put on high alert to report any suspicious motorcycles to police. Deployment of motorized and foot patrols was ongoing at that time. Increase in the border population in the city has required traffic police to increase its presence on the roads. Most accidents are caused by border poor riding, mostly on traffic lights, especially in the evenings and morning rush hours. Traffic police argues that even significant numbers of riders with permits is caught in the disobedience of traffic rules. The police have tried to put border riders to order through various strategies like training on traffic rules, safety precaution to border riders in the association, and arresting wrongdoers around the city. The traffic has also engaged border leaders in curbing the vices around the traffic lights. The study found out that there was a good working relationship between KCCA, traffic wardens and border operators within the city. In order to have the border transport regulated, the KCCA traffic wardens had the following proposals. Gazette border stages introduce small strict laws. Border riders should be organized under one umbrella, free from politics, and as opposed to the various ones like border 2010 under the leadership of Ewan Chitata, whose patron is said to be the high-profile political leader who subscribes to the ruling National Resistance Movement Party, whose name the riders were not at liberty to mention. More training for riders was suggested as another way to achieve sanity. Government officials should desist from influence peddling, since some of them double as owners of these motorcycles. Politicians should let the law enforcers do their work. Border riders, in addition to having 2 number plates on the motorcycles, should wear uniform with unique numbers in the back and on the helmet for easy identification. At least this one is not yet done in Uganda. It is important to note that all respondents did not believe that chasing border operators out of the city was important in regulation of border business. Research findings still in continuation. KCCA is responsible for day-to-day running of the city, thus directly has role in regulation of border business. Interviews with KCCA indicate that border regulation require a lot of policy and physical changes and a strong arm of the central government at large. KCCA recognized that facilities, especially roads and streets, were already crowded. It has tried to regulate traffic as a whole through creation of one-way roads and streets. These streets at least were enjoying sanity in regard to traffic congestion and disorder. Specific move to decongest the central business district was aimed at regulating border operations within the city. It was the major reason for pushing for a ban on border business in the central business district, although it is not yet implemented. The riders should always respect traffic rules and regulations to reduce unnecessary congestion. KCCA has worked with border leaders to create sanity, but however, self-discipline, according to KCCA, is vital in curbing vices amongst border riders. However much they try to regulate the business, KCCA officials perceive that political wing at KCCA and general politics have also negative effect on implementation of the rules and regulations that would bring order to the border operators within the city. Good, the discussions. The general objectives of this research. The general objective of this research was to identify and recommend possible strategies that can legally streamline governance and operations of border taxi transport in Kampala City and Uganda at large. There was another assumption that riders were or are in a transition age group, which is rebellious. It was perceived as a business that can be done by any person as long as he or she can ride the motorcycle. Last but not least, it was also assumed that motorcycle transport business was and is hard to govern because some of the cyclists are part of the patronage system used to gather intelligence information for the regime, and this makes it hard to govern motorcycle riders. This chapter looks at the findings in chapter 4 and presents the discussions to answer the research questions and the theories and assumptions as they were presented in the statements of the problem, and the conclusion is drawn from this discussion. A recap of research questions: what is the relationship between their profiles and ungovernability of the boda boda sector as a form of public transport in Uganda. What are the perceptions and roles of city authorities on management of boda boda taxi business? In what ways can the governance of the ungovernable boda boda sector be achieved? There are three major findings revealed to this research. Boda boda taxi is dominated by male, married, responsible, mature adults. Whatever they do, they have a reason why they do it. Majority of the riders are above the age of 19 years of age, with a big number of them in an age group of 30 to 60 years. This finding opposes the assumption that boda boda taxi is dominated by the rebellious youth. Most riders are literate and have gone to school, and a few of them fall into the category of transition age group that is often rebellious. Most of the riders stopped at school at ordinary level of education, that is senior 4 in Uganda. This pulls them out of the class of the illiterate youth. From the study findings, there is a collaboration between the assumption that some motorcycles taxi operators are part of the patronage system used by the regime to gather intelligence from information and the research findings. According to the information adduced from the traffic police and KCCA traffic wardens, it suggests that most of the riders seem to be people highly connected to highly well positions, politicians that influence the decisions in this country. It is a matter of further investigation that Boda 2010, an association headed by One Chitata, is under the patronage of the Inspector General of Police. And actually this Boda 2010, as I speak to you now, it is disbanded, and the patron, that One Chitata, was arrested and he has been in prison for some time, though recently he was released. This argument is backed by the comment made by One Abdallah Chitata, the leader of the notorious Boda 2010 Association, in the Monitor newspaper of Tuesday, September 2015. He was quoted as saying, Boda riders should be involved in whatever plans government has to restructure their activities. This was to imply that the government cannot achieve the plan to regulate boda taxi without their input. The struggle to have the boda streamline needs concerted effort. The study further found out that the boda operations in Uganda in the legal vacuum, whereby there are no specific laws governing this sector. The laws that are referred to by the interviewed traffic police officers and KCCA wardens were designed to regulate the omnibus taxi system. Traffic and Road Safety Act 1998, that is the book to refer to. Failure to have specific laws governing motorcycles, taxis, leads to challenge of managing the boda riders. Despite different education levels, all riders know that maximum load of their motorcycles is 1 passenger. Thus, this proves a gap in the management and enforcement of regulations and laws that govern motorcycle transport in Kampala City. The challenge of overloading is due to poor or no enforcement, due to overwhelming big motorcycle boda populations. According to the study, the governability of boda is entirely politically motivated. 51% of the bodas and 64% of traffic police and 60% of KCCA traffic wardens of all respondents put a pointing finger to politics of Kampala City, basing on the fact that traffic police and KCCA traffic wardens point accusing fingers to the political influence in the management of the public transport in the Kampala City, and the fact that it has been reported in print media that political players have always come up openly to defend the border cyclists whenever caught on the wrong side of the traffic laws and other related offenses. It is our argument that the problem of ungovernability of the border transport in Kampala city is particular and other towns of Uganda at large is entirely the brainchild of political influence peddling in the transport management. The border cyclists are looked at as potential voters who meet many people on a daily basis, and so politicians look at them as the strong building block in the struggle to build political capital. And for this reason, politicians politicians make sure they make decisions which must favor this stepping stone to political capital gain. From the results, we see more than half, that's 57.3% of the riders are above the age of 31 years, and remaining percentage 42.7% being between 18 to 30 years. And the youth are known to be unruly in most cases, and under normally at the center of the violence in the city. True that the youth are normally difficult to manage, but the research findings still challenge the assumption about the youth in as far as the problem of ungovernability of border transport is concerned. The study found out that big vehicle drivers do not respect the border riders. Thus, there is a conflict, blocking of small passages that can be utilized by borders. This is confirmed by the study by Hughes and Fiso and Russell of 2014, where they suggested that training should be given to car drivers so that they learn that there are other road users like borders. The border riders perceive that car drivers, especially minibuses, taxi, have limited willingness to share the road with motorists. Hughes, Faso, and Rezo 2014 also found out that car drivers are less willing to share same lane with the motorcycles. This can partly explain bad driving due to these differences between the drivers and the riders. There is a need to involve motorcycle transport operators at consultation level in decision making and policy formulation process at KCCA through their leadership. According to research findings, 92% of the respondents state leaders are elected. Most people believe in politically elected leaders who will give representative views. As the result, the policies regarding motorcycle transport will not be resisted at implementation level should they involve the border operators at policy formulation level. Border taxi is a solution that has become a problem. It is a solution to easy movement within the city. Very fast deliveries can be made with the help of border operators. However, when reference is made to the problems associated with the necessary evil, if it's the casualty ward of all hospitals you can talk of in Uganda, one may pose a bit and ask a question: should this mode of transport still be recognized in Uganda? The ever-increasing population of Kampala has made border a necessary evil that all city dwellers, from the president to the very local or poorest person, have made it their way today, their day-to-day mode and easy way to move around the city. Basing on the research findings in Chapter 4, most of the operators have low level of education. Their level of judgment matches with their level of education. That is why 80% of the operators confess having been arrested for traffic-related offenses, Most people in such a category of education understand after a very long and tedious explanation. That is why the whole phenomenon has become a complex challenge. When one takes time to study their behavior, uh, they, 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 they behave in the same manner, leaving one wondering whether all border operators were born of the same mother. Border transport is a good and important means of transport in the city like Kampala, but lacks an element of leadership and governance. That's the end of my presentation, and maybe there are references that were made, and maybe for further reading people can refer to these references. Thank you very much. I come to the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey, for such a wonderful presentation on the sustainable public transport. What does socially justice transport look like? I'll take some of the questions that were raised by the some of the what do you call them, attendees in this conference. One question from Yvonne is, I'm happy to say that some women are doing well in transport industry as commercial drivers, though it is highly a masculine industry with its own setbacks. Very few women are doing very well. Actually, that is not a question, that is just a statement. I'm looking for, yes. Somebody who has not given their name says, why are boda operators rude all over? Is there an organization that can train them properly to have a good public relationship? Why are boda operators rude all over? Is there an organization that can train them properly to have good public relationships? And boda operators, I believe by now you know, but it's the motorcycle or motorbike riders. Maybe you can take that question for us.
I'm not familiar with the Boda case, but I'd like to maybe comment on the statement about women in work. So one of the points that our paper also addressed is having more women with voice in order to include more women in the transportation network in general. So because there's a lack of women in the decision-making spectrum and less women in the management and maintenance and the operation of the mobility network in the case of Jordan, we argue that this is also problematic, and this is also causing less females to use public transportation. I don't think I can answer the Boda question. And also I have my colleague Ahmed in the panel as well, so maybe he can shed some light on the question as well.
Okay, I actually see that Geoffrey has joined us again. Geoffrey, can you hear me? No? Okay, no problem. Let's take some of the questions that have been raised by more of the attendees. And hi, Elizabeth. I'm not sure who she's answering to. Would like to discuss this topic in a broader context. I hope to establish a sort of matching platform, for example, through conferences like this. We'll try and pair Auntie's question to Elizabeth and see what is happening there. I have a question for you, Deyala. I don't know if you know, if at all, when you talk about the motorbikes all over the country or all over the world, actually, do we have accident insurance covers for such accidents that are caused by the motorbikes? And if so, do they cover both the riders and their pillions?
Okay, in Jordan, we don't have motorbikes at all. So this is something that maybe we cannot look into. We have very difficult topography, and we have a lot of hills and valleys, so we can't really use the bicycle. And the motor bicycle has been an option that we are trying to push forward. Probably, yes, we will need to address the issue of insurance that includes both the rider and the person that gets into the accident, God forbids. But I don't think we can talk about it because we don't have it yet. However, we are looking at the cases that have been discussed today, and we can see that it is a very efficient and one of the ways that we can make our mobility systems more inclusive and have all categories of users, especially that we don't want to look at gender as one area that is in separation of other dimensions, and this is why our study tried to link it with poverty and politics, for example. So yes, I would agree, and this is something that we would like to probably include in our future study, the inclusion of motorbikes as another way for mobility in Jordan.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Ahmad is also joined us live.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Ahmad, if you can hear me, there's a question that says from Yvonne. Yvonne says, I'm happy to say that some women are doing well in the transport industry as commercial drivers, though it's a highly masculine industry with its own setbacks. Very few women are doing very well here. What are your sentiments on the fact that this is a male-dominated industry?
Yes, thank you for this question. And thank everybody for joining us today. My only answer would be maybe it's due to cultural norms. These cultural norms are mainly dominated by masculinity. When it comes to dealing with cars, when it comes to dealing with anything that is mobile, let's say, usually you find experts or people are trying to fix these systems. They happen to be males. For instance, let's assume there is a female driver, and we do have some of them in Jordan, but not as many as it should be, or not as much as we would hope it to be. So let's assume there was an issue with one of the, let's say, cars. Usually you find men fixing these cars, not women. And that is a problem that we need to sort out. And also, this kind of thinking makes females, like go away from these kind of systems and even apply for these jobs because of the consequences that comes with it. What we need to do is to normalize the idea of having female drivers and equip them with enough skills to be able to sustain themselves during the process when they are working. So they don't have to depend on anyone to help them in order to do their job right. Because I believe with enough training and enough technology these days, and we already have them, we can definitely have more female drivers in the system. And that is something that we all hope for. And every time we see a female driver, whether it was in public transport or in Uber or even in trucks, we all get excited for some reason. But again, it's because of the cultural norms, the fabric of the society that dictates masculinity in mobility. This is the one that needs to be addressed. Usually people fight when we come and talk to them this way. So what we try to do is to actually layer it with an intersectional lens instead of talking about feminist issues or like gender issues. So what we mean by that, instead of just focusing on gender, we focus on intersectionality. And this includes all vulnerable groups, not just females. And when you talk to society about it this way, they accept it more. And I believe with enough time and enough awareness, we will reach that point. Of course, equipped with evidence to support that later.
Thank you very much, Ahmad. I see Geoffrey's hand is up. Geoffrey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. Because we have a couple of questions here for you. One is, what criteria do you use when registering Boda Boda riders? Because there are several accidents caused by the riders. Do they have licenses? That is a question from one of the attendees.
Yes, actually, I have already answered that on the chat.
Okay.
The criteria for registering motorcycle in Uganda, one, when you buy a motorcycle, you need to license it and get a number plate and that, and then you hit the road. Then these local authorities like Kampala Capital City Authority require that somebody to operate in the city, they have to register with the Capital City Authority. But the most unfortunate thing is that most people are riding on the road without registering. And when the law enforcers try to calm down these people who just come on the road, politics is at play. You find they arrest somebody because he's riding a motorcycle without a license, and in the evening somebody in a big position comes to the police station, and this person is released, and the next day is on the road. So somehow the authorities, like the police force and the traffic police, they somehow are overwhelmed by that kind of influence peddling. So I think the issue of registration, yes, it would work, but politics at play affects it so much. There was somebody who asked about why border borders are rude. We also come to the same point whereby you find these guys, they do a lot of movements within the day. They meet very many people, and politicians who are looking at political capital, they want to use these people as a stepping stone to capital gain and political capital gain. And for that reason, you find that they end up trying to formulate laws that will protect this particular stepping stone. They try to avoid antagonizing with the border riders because they have a big say. They are quite a number when you look at them. And then another thing is that these borders, their level of education is a little bit there. They have not studied a lot, and for that reason, their behavior, I think, is marked. Thank you very much. Any other question which I may need to answer, because somehow my internet disrupted me.
Okay, the earlier question that we asked, that do you have insurance covers for border accidents, particularly for both the riders and the pillion?
I beg your pardon?
You have insurance covers that covers border accidents, particularly for both the riders and the pillions.
Yes, these policies are there. They do insurance, and actually it is a requirement that each motorcycle, commercial motorcycle in Uganda, should have that third-party insurance. Sometimes they do even comprehensive, but there are very few who do that kind of insurance. And politics is at hand. They don't implement those who would be good laws to bring sanity into this particular form of transport.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. We will move on to the next question. And this is just Yvonne, who's actually raised this for any of the panelists. So I'm hoping Dayala or Ahmad or even Godfrey could be able to answer this. Yvonne says, I'm about to go to the field to collect data on women as commercial drivers in Accra, Ghana. It would be basically on their experiences in the industry. Any inputs from the panelists who have had a forehand experience in this area?
Maybe I can also come on that one also.
Yes, Godfrey.
Yeah, concerning the female riders, I think it is a matter of mindset, like African traditions. We want to believe that there are some activities which are done by men and there are those which are done by females. And until we break that kind of mindset, we shall see many people, many male dominating this business. But what I want to let you know is that I have seen, I think, one lady in Uganda who was being interviewed on one of the TVs. She's a motorcycle rider, a border rider. And according to the testimonies from her customers, she's a wonderful rider. And also I have met women riding on the street, but they are very few compared to the males. I think it is a matter of taking a robust move, most especially by women in transport, like this group, this association, to train people to take a robust move and organize women, train them, and maybe give them like one time they can pay back for the motorcycles they will have gotten through women in transport initiative. So I would think that that is the problem. It is mindset. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey. We also have Dayala, who has her hand up to answer the same question. Dayala, if you can hear me, please go ahead.
Yes, I can. And this time I'm going to open my video camera. I didn't know we were allowed to do that. So in our paper, we discussed two new projects that are also happening in Amman. One of them is a bus rapid transit and an initiative called Amman Bus. So basically what we're seeing is that there is a lack of female drivers and operators as well. And that's why we reached for an international fund to help us with mapping this sort of behavior and this sort of phenomena. So we're now collaborating with the ITF, the International Transport Federation, and they are providing us with some fund to do workshops and to try to address this issue. And this is what I'd like to highlight here, is the roles of the different stakeholders and understanding how every sector can play an active role in that. So academia, international funds, researchers, governments, and everyone else. And this is because we need more evidence-based research in order to come up with the more realistic numbers that can project future involvement of females. And I'm actually also trying to address this question in particular because we had a recent study published in Jordan that highlights that 47% of females refuse to take job opportunities because they can't find public transportation. And one of the reasons is that there are yes, it is shocking. And one of the reasons is that they don't feel safe in the commute itself. And also, I'd like to highlight what my colleague said earlier, that we need to also work on capacity building and training more females to be able to take jobs in the maintenance and the operation of buses and public transport in general.
Thank you very much, Diala. Elizabeth Njoki has reached out to Yvonne. Yvonne, who'd asked about any guidance on how to go about collecting data, and especially in as pertaining to women as commercial drivers in Accra. And Yvonne, Elizabeth says, Yvonne, reach out to SNM from Miss Taxi Ghana. And here is a report about it. She's actually attached that. So if you can, kindly have a look at our chat box and get the information that you need. This is for Yvonne. Elizabeth has been able to attach a link to some of the works, and then you're able to be helped. Thank you very much. I want to thank the panelists in this particular session. This is Sustainable Public Transport. What does socially justice public transport look like, for creating time to be with us? And just before that, actually, I'm reminded that before I leave, if they do have any parting shots, can I kindly know and give them this platform? I'll start with Ahmad.
Yes, yeah, I can talk and hear you. First of all, this session is let's say, it's a good introduction to what transportation should look like in the future, a sustainable transportation system, and how it should look like for the future. We focus on gender. All of us are here to talk about how to make it more, let's say, inclusive for everyone. And we need these kind of debates to happen all the time. Because if we are, as researchers, doing our job separately from policymakers and participation of society or other cities that having the same issues as us, we will not go anywhere. And this way, in order to make it happen, we have to see other studies. We have to see other people and what they are sharing. So my only take on this is that we need to move now from collaboration to maybe action and develop some action plans. Maybe we can combine actions between cities that have similar struggles and face similar issues. And these action plans can be implemented in several areas of other cities as well after we consolidate them together. So that's my only point on it. And I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahmad, for creating time. Diala, do you have any parting shot?
I'm actually happy to be here today, and this is the second time that we are here, and this is an extended part of a project that we already started with the FES, and I also would like to highlight the importance of having them as our partners, and it's very eye-opening to look at the experience from different contexts, especially in African cities, and to learn that we share the same problems and we share the same vision, and we'd like to reach the same place. So it has been delightful to be here today, and thank you very much for the informing presentations and for the eye-opening questions.
Thank you very much, Diala. Geoffrey, if you can hear me, do you have any parting shots?
Basically, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference because they have done great work in bringing awareness to the general public. But the most important thing I would like to call upon the women in transport is that we need to get out of the conference rooms and get into action. That will make a more impact felt on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Geoffrey. And that brings us to the end of this particular session, which is sustainable public transport. What does a socially just public transport look like? I'd like to thank the panelists, and this is Constant Cape, Ahmad, Diala, Ronya, Geoffrey, and Azeb. Thank you very much.